People have always been fascinated by what happens after we die. It's why we tell ghost stories, right? We talk about spirits and all these entities that are supposedly trapped between our world and the next. And if you dig deep enough into folklore and some pretty forbidden books, you'll find whispers of how to actually contact them. So today, we're looking into the incredibly chilling world of ghost summoning.
But let's get something straight, right from the get-go. This is not for fun. This isn't a game. What you're about to hear is a serious warning, pulled from legends and some really terrifying cautionary tales. So please do not try any of this. And this is the reason why. This is the one fundamental truth you just can't ignore. Think about it. Opening a door is easy, but being able to shut it again, that's a whole other story. You have to remember this as we go forward. Okay, so let's get into the history here. This desire to reach out to the other side, it's not some new thing from horror movies. No way. This is an ancient and honestly a surprisingly universal practice. You can find these kinds of rituals in cultures all over the planet. For instance, in ancient Japan, they had this game, the Haya Kamonogatari Kaidankai. The idea was to tell 100 ghost stories, and after that very last one was finished, a real spirit was supposed to show up. Fast forward to Victorian Europe, and you've got the whole seance craze, a pretty dangerous obsession, where people would hear voices in the dark. And, of course, there are always the forbidden grimoires, these old, creepy books that claim to hold the secrets to calling up the dead. Now, here's what's really fascinating. All these different rituals from different times and places, they all have one thing in common, a circle of protection. And that really makes you stop and think, right? It forces you to ask the question, were they protecting themselves from a friendly ghost, or were they afraid of something else answering the call instead? Something far worse. So if you've ever found yourself wondering what one of these rituals actually entails, well, here's a kind of chilling blueprint, one that's been passed down in occult circles for who knows how long. And again, I can't stress this enough. This is for understanding, not for you to go out and try. First up, you need the right place. Somewhere the barrier between our world and theirs feels thin. Think of an old abandoned building, or maybe a room just filled with mirrors. Second, the offerings. Salt is for protection. A candle acts as a guide. And a personal item, well, that's supposed to be like a beacon for the specific spirit you're trying to reach. Third, the circle. It has to be an unbroken line of salt or chalk or ash. And once you're inside, you absolutely cannot leave. And finally, the chant. Sometimes it's whispering a name, sometimes it's speaking in Latin. The goal is always the same, though. You call out into the darkness and wait for it to call back. And this is where it gets absolutely terrifying. People do these things hoping for closure, right? They want to hear that familiar, comforting voice of someone they lost. But what they usually report hearing is something completely different. It's scratching from inside the walls, a sudden, sharp knock on the door, or, and this is the worst one, the unmistakable sound of someone breathing right behind them. So what actually happens when that knocking starts? This is where we go from theory to consequences. There are so many stories out there told in hushed voices, online and in old folklore, about summonings that went horribly, horribly wrong. These are the warnings. Okay, so there's this one really well-known story about a group of teenagers. They decided to try summoning a spirit in an old, abandoned school. So they light their candles, draw their circle, start chanting. After a few minutes, the lights start to flicker, and one of them swears they see a shadow in the corner of the room, and it's crawling toward them. They all got spooked, obviously. They just laughed it off like their imaginations were getting the best of them, broke the circle, and went home. But one of the girls, she woke up the next morning with 3 deep, really painful scratches all the way down her back. Then there's another story about someone who was just desperate to talk to their grandmother one last time. They did a ritual, and at first, they heard a voice whisper their name. It sounded like her, but then it started to change. It got deeper, all distorted and monstrous, and it became very, very clear that it wasn't their grandmother at all. Totally panicked, they grabbed the mirror they were using and smashed it, just trying to break the connection. But to this day, they claim that a shadow still hangs around in their home, a constant dark reminder of a door they opened and couldn't quite get closed. And then there's this one tale from Eastern Europe. It's really disturbing. A woman decided she was going to do a mirror ritual all by herself, Her friends waited just outside the room, for safety. After a couple minutes of chanting, they heard it. A single, blood-curdling scream. They burst into the room, and it was empty. The salt circle they'd drawn on the floor was broken from the inside. The woman was just gone. The only thing left, or so the story goes, was the faint echo of her voice, just whispering over and over again, "I let it in." So, you see, the point of all this is pretty clear. Why do these warnings pop up in so many different cultures? It's because the real danger isn't just about getting a good scare. It's about permanence. It's about what happens when you decide to play with the dead, and then you realize they're not playing back. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, the warnings are weirdly the same. In Mexico, the folklore says that a spirit you don't dismiss properly will follow you home. In parts of Africa, the elders warn that what you call up might just be a trickster, or even a demon pretending to be a loved one. But the biggest warning, the one that's truly universal, is this: you don't get to choose who or what answers your call. And that brings us to maybe the most common and definitely the most dangerous tool used in these rituals: mirrors. See, in the worlds of the occult, a mirror isn't just for checking your reflection. It's treated as a doorway, a portal to another plane of existence. And because they're seen as these gateways, there is one absolute, non-negotiable golden rule. You can find it in almost every story, every piece of folklore. After you feel like you've made contact, you must never, ever look directly into that mirror. The reason why is, well, it's pretty simple and it's absolutely chilling. Because if you do look, there's a good chance you won't see your own reflection anymore. You might see something else entirely, looking back at you, using your own face as a mask. Look, I get it. The curiosity comes from wanting answers, from wanting proof that this life isn't all there is. But after everything we've talked about, the final question you have to ask yourself isn't, can I actually summon a ghost? No, it's, do I really want to see something that isn't supposed to exist, staring back at me from the other side of the glass? Curiosity can open doors that were never meant to be opened.